Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Kenneth Jarrett Singleton, and we're going to be discussing his amazing poetry book, A Conceptual Circus. That's available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. But people, if you want to gather everything that Ken has in store, do yourself a favor and head directly to his personal site. And that's kennethjarrettsingleton.wordpress.com. There you'll find more information on Ken himself, more information on this fantastic book, A Conceptual Circus. But people, get this. He has 5 other titles that he's also written to date, and hopefully many more on the horizon. So you're going to need to head on over to, like I said, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but more importantly, kennethjarrettsingleton.wordpress.com, and just get lost in all of them, okay? There's hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing pages, so you know where to go. Pick up your copies today. And I do want to take this opportunity and point out that Ken was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best publishers in the business, Author Reputation Press. People, if you are an artist out there, if you are an author out there, you've written a book, or you know someone that has, you're gonna need to reach out to ARP. Okay, they're one of the best in the business to do it. They specialize in taking your literary creation to the next level. Head on over to their website today and talk to a representative about what they can do for you. And you can head on over to authorreputationpress.com to gather more information. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Ken here on the line. Now, as I mentioned, it's a poetry book we're going to discuss today, okay? A Conceptual Circus. It is much more than just a wonderful title, okay? First and foremost, we're going to discuss that title because there is something about it that really just stops you in your tracks, okay? And it forces you to explore further. And I think, as an author, that's really what you're wanting, right? But also, the poems that are going to be found in the book, people, it's coming from a variety of places. It's going to talk about love, hate, addiction, loss, so much more. I promise you, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in your life or whatever circumstances you may be going through, there's a poem in this book that you can find and you can relate to. Because it all revolves around human emotions, and the relatability factor is really going to be there, okay? You're going to want to pick up this book and just escape from reality and the circumstances that you're going through and get lost in the wonderful poetry that Kenneth has created. And at the end of the day, he's the expert. He's written it, and he's going to be able to articulate it much better than I ever could. So let's bring him here with us, and let's discuss. Ken, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How you doing today, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ken, listen, the pleasure is all ours, man. I think not only your poetry book, but your 5 other titles as well. I think you have so much to offer, and especially with the poetry book, and given the wide range of topics that it touches upon, this is something that I know people need right now. Given everything that we have had going on for these past few years, and just the pressures of everyday reality, right? I mean, this is something that a lot of people are going to be able to take advantage of. And I think you're on to something special here. So the pleasure is truly all ours. And I know we have a lot of information pertaining to your books. But before we go into that, I want to learn a little bit more about your background, Ken. So let's start there. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
I was born in 1983 in Charleston, West Virginia. I still live in West Virginia. My first book was published in 2004 when I was 20. It was called The Cadaver Factory, the science fiction horror novel. Then after that, the following year, I wrote a drama and suspense novel called The Donner Society. Then later that year, I wrote my first play in dramatic tragedy entitled Angelica and Francesca. From there, I wrote another play entitled Nicu II and Victoria's Incestuous Romance as well as my first poetry book, Exotic Neurotic, which were both published in 2015.
So you've been writing for quite some time. Man, that's fantastic. So, you know, I wasn't planning on going here so soon, but after that answer, how could I go anywhere else? Ken, let's talk about your writing background. What inspired you to become a writer? Was this something that you were doing as a hobby growing up? Were there artists that inspired you? Talk to us a little bit more about that.
I was always inspired and into all arts, and I always read a lot and wrote my own stories, just playing around when I was a kid. Like that, I was always encouraged a lot by my parents, and they always supported me, and they were really the reason I was able to do it.
So is it fair to say that you always had a pretty vivid imagination, Ken?
Yeah, always had a vivid imagination.
There you go. There you go. Well, that was writing, but let's talk about poetry because, of course, this book, the main anchor for today's interview, A Conceptual Circus, is a poetry book. So where does that love for poetic writing come from?
Edgar Allan Poe, a lot. Dante Alighieri. I read a lot of Sophocles and Shakespeare, Homer. I read a lot of old literature.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I'm right there. I had a complete works of Poe's when I was, I think, in junior high. And the book was massive, but I took it everywhere with me. I was obsessed with Edgar Allan Poe's writing. And listen, when I got a little bit older, Greek literature, you're talking about Homer, I'm all for it, man. These are great, great works of art. And this is fantastic. So focusing on A Conceptual Circus, I know it covers a wide range of subjects and characters. Where did that thought process come from? Where did you get the inspiration to create this poetry, and why did you choose to have it in such a wide variety?
Well, I basically based themes on each individual poem. Some poems are related, but it covers all subject matter, and some of it's fictional, some of it's exaggerated, Some of it's abstract, open to interpretation.
Let's talk about, because another thing that is open to interpretation in my mind is interpreting it in wonderful ways. Your title, man, A Conceptual Circus. Where does that title come from? And what really inspired you to make that the representation for your book, Ken?
It represented it well, something conceived of the mind. It's based on ideas of a lot of abstract and deep thought, edgy subject matter, a lot of it. Some of the poems involve circus and carnival themes, kind of quirky. It's the realistic combined with the surrealistic.
Well, listen, I think we've teased it enough here, Ken. My listening audience is going to get very upset with me if I don't hurry up and move on to this next one. Your book is, of course, filled with all of these different poems from a wide range of topics that you've compiled over a number of years. First and foremost, do you happen to have a favorite poem? And I know that's hard, right? Because as an artist, I get it, man. I mean, our art is something that we create. It's something that we birth. And it's like children, right? It's hard to pick a favorite. Although for my parents out there listening in, I know there's always one that you might not admit it to your children, but there's always one that you lean a little more towards. Ken, two-part question here, man. First part, do you have a favorite poem that you've written? And second part, can you share it with us? Because we would love to hear it.
I do have a favorite out of this book called The Exercise of Obsession. Something left, something more than you I long for gore. Soothing comfort by what ails them and what will strike again. Something right, something less. The grand provider has come to bless. Harps somehow played by the fingerless, those who did abstain. Intersperse, inner core, they'll try to exit with something more. Later will come bountiful fortunes for those who leave a stain. Madame the reprise, I want you to tell me lies. Madame the surprise, are many things to mesmerize. Mystic spells, parallels, oral moments with oral gels. Despite her candidacies, so superbly sings the thrush. Aquarelles, useless prayers, rigid trances and rigid stares, were enamored by the home's decor and the shape-shifting of the dust. Hypnotized, hypno state, suffocation inside the crate. Such trauma should be valued and undergone again. Madamized to size, separate the ties. Madamized, it's no surprise. The turning spectacle will mesmerize. Former use, former friend. I'm picking at it so it doesn't mend. Long ago, going with progression seemed like the thing to do. Formulate, insert pins. He'll be screaming when it begins. Such a disservice is done to himself. Puncturing his due. Faces melt, sudden felt. Is the heat so adored and dealt? Take our breath with granted humidity, the endowment of a blistered earth. Madamize, cut the ties, cut the ribbons from the prize. I'm pleased with their demise in the gathering of flies. Madamize, can lips sighs for amusement and what it implies. I want to hear their cries from the abscission exercise. It's one.
I love that. Ken, why would you say that that one is your favorite poem?
I don't know. I guess the rhyming pattern and pretty long one.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say was the inspiration behind that? I mean, where did that come from? Was it just, a rainy day and you were thinking about this, or were you going through something particular in your life that really sparked that?
A lot of it was what I've seen going on around me. Constant lying by the mainstream media. I see slavery induced now on the entire world.
Listen, I'm right there with you, man. You hit on something big there, and that's a rabbit hole we can go down for hours. I mean, people who out there can also relate to what mainstream media is getting. There's so much division right now, and I'll leave it at that. People, again, we're here on the line with Kenneth Jarrett Singleton. We're discussing his amazing book, A Conceptual Circus. It's available for purchase through Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, but make sure to head on over to his personal site, KennethJarrettSingleton.wordpress.com, and gather this book as well as the 5 other titles that he's also written. Ken, as we close out of this fantastic narrative, because I do want to leave a couple of minutes to go into another one of your titles, when it comes to A Conceptual Circus, 2-part question here for this one, okay? Who would you say is your intended audience with the book? And if there is one main message or theme that you really want them to take from it, what would that be?
I would say that the main message and the most important message regarding a book or anything is the freedom to write it.
Mm-hmm.
It suits all ages and all walks of life.
People, as I mentioned, this is not the only book that Kenneth has written. Okay, he's got another 5 titles to date. And also, I'm going to say it, I'm hoping that there are plenty more on the horizon. But when you head on over to his Amazon page, his Barnes & Noble page, or his personal website, you're going to be greeted by those 5 other titles. I'm going to quickly read them out here for you. We have The Donner Society, Exotic Neurotic, Nicu 2, and Victoria's Incestuous Romance, The Cadaver Factory, which of course he mentioned earlier, and Angelica and Francesca. Now, Ken, nobody knows your books better than you, so please, dealer's choice here with this next one. But choose another one of your titles and give us a brief synopsis of what it entails so we know what is in store.
Angelica and Francesca, that's the play I wrote. It involves twin daughter duchesses, and they're real mischievous. It causes a lot of problems for their dad, who's duke, and it causes a lot of strife within the royal family and their personal family.
Mm-hmm. There you have it. Well, listen, that is playing to the thespian in me, okay? As I mentioned before, I'm a filmmaker. That is right up my alley, right? When we're talking theater is my background, man.
Yeah.
I love that. That's fantastic. People, what more can be said, okay? You know where you have to go to pick up all of these copies and just get lost in. And as we've stated, and I'm going to state it again, there's so much happening right now. There's so much division. There's so much adversity and just challenges in everyday life. Accessing any one of these books and just utilizing it as an escape to just get lost in a fantastic journey that he's constructed, you can't go wrong. Amazon and Barnes & Noble are where you have to go. Kenneth Jarrett Singleton.wordpress.com is to gather more information. And Ken, as we close out here, man, I can think of no better way to close out such a fantastic interview as this one has been than with another one of your poems. So if you have another one readily available, myself, my listening audience, we are all ears.
This is called Body Bound. I am now body bound. Look at what I have found. Your precious body's bound. You the process will confound. You are a layman, but I'm not putting it in simple terms. Your lamentation, the ones beneath share space with worms. I'm not sure just where they originated. I'm not sure you'll be happier when incarcerated. Bound and proverbial, you are primordial, the primordial blessing. I really like the way you're dressing. There we go. The shorter one.
I like it, man. Ken, you're doing something special here, man. Keep up the fantastic work. And once again, thank you for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's an honor to be on your show.